Yeah, let's get started. Let us know when. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Cook County Board of Commissioners special meeting Thursday, August 24th. And the purpose of our meeting today is twofold: to talk a little bit about our service agreements with the City of Grand Marais, and then to also spend some time talking about our 2024 budget and our financial management plan. And we've received some updated information that will be very helpful to us as we move forward with our discussion. So as we think about service agreements, which is the first item on our agenda, you might think about, or maybe the public is thinking about, why are we doing this at this point in time? Well, we have really old, outdated service agreements that aren't current in terms of cost or the level of service that's being provided. And what we want to do is make sure we're creating kind of a roadmap for the future that is stable, sustainable, and also equitable throughout our county. And we also want to broaden the public's understanding of what these agreements are, because it involves the allocation of resources and the capacity that we have to provide services, and to look at different kinds of needs that the community has. So our purpose this afternoon is to just discuss those service levels and expectations around contracts that we currently have with the city. We may talk about some of the data and information that we have, and we have individuals from our highway department and from law enforcement here today to share that with us. And our goal is to really figure out a way to collaborate and develop an equitable, reasonable revision of all of our agreements. So let's start out with law enforcement. Sheriff Eliason, we appreciate you coming today to talk about that 25-year-old agreement with the city.
Sure. We entered into an agreement with the city, I think it was 97 or 98, to provide law enforcement services to the city of Grand Marais and the outlying areas of Grand Marais, I guess would be the best way to put that. At the time, we were contracted to provide 5,824 hours of patrol coverage to the city of Grand Marais, which, when you divide that by 2,080, the normal work year, that comes out to 2.8 full-time employees. We've had pretty good luck keeping the 2 full-time employees in the city. The 0.8, that's been a seasonal position that we've usually tried to get that person on, but first part of May, and that person would work until the end of September or into October to provide extra coverage for the city during the peak seasons. In recent years, it's been more and more difficult to get that seasonal position. People, it's difficult for somebody to move up here and work seasonal and then go back to doing something else. Last year, we turned that seasonal law enforcement position, patrol position, into a community service officer position. And we were lucky enough to get somebody to come up and fill that position last year and also this year. But the kicker is they have to leave by the middle of August to go back to school again. So you're losing these positions, during the height of tourist season. So we have been trying to scratch our heads and figure out ways to fulfill this contract, which now, coming up very soon, is going to be very difficult for the reason of we are losing one of our patrol deputies on September 3rd. We have a resignation. That deputy is actually going to work for the Lake County Sheriff's Office. And then October 1st, we're losing our jail administrator. So to backfill that jail administrator position, one of the other deputies interviewed for it, and we had selected Ben Hallberg for that position. He had been our jail administrator before, had gone back on the road, and now he's coming back. So if we placed him in that jail administrator position, which is crucial to our operations, then we are short 2 patrol deputies, because we have been advertising, I don't know, for 2 months now, and we have 0 applicants. And the Minnesota Post Board, they have a pool line, it's called, and where agencies can put their vacancies on there, and applicants can call this 1-800 number, 877 number, and it's a recording of all the openings in the state of Minnesota. Currently, there are over 200 openings on the pool line, so everybody is looking for somebody. Some of the larger agencies are able to throw out, some bonuses or hiring incentives in the form of cash or other things. We have not been able to do that. We have not even had the opportunity to discuss something like that yet. I don't even know where we would go with that, to be honest with you. So recruiting is at a complete standstill. We're going to be down 2 patrol deputies very soon. So, I wrote up some options. Some ideas that we've come up with. Option number 1 is we go with a 6-person county schedule, because we have 8 deputies in the county, 2 designated to the city. We try to come up with a 6-person county schedule, which will leave some holes in the schedule that will have to be covered with call time. It's very difficult to provide a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day schedule with only 6 people. One of the things that I can foresee with that is you're changing the staff schedule in mid-swing. That creates anxiety on them. That creates anxiety on their families. It's not fun. By doing that, we could preserve the 2 positions within Grand Marais. They would still be designated to patrol the city of Grand Marais. The other option is to leave Ben Hallberg in the rotation and not have a jail administrator, which would provide a 7-person schedule. And we used to work a 7-person schedule, so it is possible. Once again, you're changing schedules, you're changing time off. If deputies have already put in, because we ask them to notify us for time off well in advance so that we have time to cover shifts. So you're changing up some of those requests. And the third option would be to take the 2 deputies that are currently working the city of Grand Marais, put them into the 8-person county rotation. We would still answer calls within the city, absolutely. We are never going to abandon the city at all. It just might be a little longer before somebody gets a response. If a deputy's in Lutzen and somebody from the city of Grand Marais calls, it could be half an hour, 20 minutes, or depending on what's going on. Like with the search we just had, it could be an hour before somebody gets to the city of Grand Marais. So those are the options we have right now. Obviously, I've been trying to forecast some of the repercussions of not having designated city patrol officers. People are going to get frustrated. People are going to take their frustrations out on the dispatchers and the responding deputies, possibly the commissioners. It's not as simple as just saying, yes, let's take these 2 and plug them into the schedule here and everybody's happy. I wish it was. So if that option were to come to fruition, we would still maintain our recruiting. And then when we were able to hire people, they would be plugged into the city schedule, which I guess backing up a little bit, if we did remove the 2 designated city patrol deputies, obviously we would not be providing the 5,824 hours to the city, which would be a breach of contract, and then that's up to you guys. Sorry. But that's one of our options. We get a stipend from the city. It's $140,000 to provide that 5,824 patrol hours to the city, which, as everybody sitting at this table knows, that's not even close to being commensurate with what deputies make when you include wages, benefits, squad car depreciation yearly. I just have a few things, training and what was the other one? Training and equipment, yeah. So I took our 2 current city patrol deputies, Leaf Lundy and Ty Backlund. Their salary, I should have put salary and benefits, but it's salary and benefits, and I got this off Brady's spreadsheet. Squad cars are about $13,000 a year. That's the depreciation, because every 4 years we replace them around, when it's all said and done, it's probably around $50,000, something like that, with equipment and time and all of that. Training and equipment, I took off an old spreadsheet I had. It's considerably more now. So you can see those, just with those 2 deputies and those 4 aspects of patrol and law enforcement, it's almost $250,000. So if we did pull the 2 deputies out of the city, put them in the county, and the city no longer wished to pay us the $140,000, we would not be actually out that $140,000, because we have a position that we have not filled, which would cover some of that. And that's one of the other aspects that I did consider, is that, if we did this and the contract was nullified, can the county make up that $140,000? That's one of the things we did consider. So I guess that's where I'm standing right now, and and it's not fun.
So, Madam Chair, I mean, there are a couple of issues here. One is the contract is outdated. The other issue, of course, as the sheriff just indicated, is we can't find people. And that's something that, we're exploring other ways of recruiting. I mean, we've tried to be really creative. I know Leah's done a lot of work to go to the community colleges that have law enforcement programs to try to get our name out there and to recruit more, new law enforcement officers to Cook County. But it's just very difficult. And so, yes, the contract needs to be updated, but also I think we all need to adjust expectations about what we can do in this hiring environment.
I think that's, you hit the nail on the head. Cook County is a county of 87 in Minnesota that's all struggling to recruit law enforcement, and nationwide there's an issue. So one of the things I'd like to do is talk to other counties about how they're approaching meeting their needs, what are they doing differently. Sheriff Eliason, maybe you've had an opportunity to speak with other counties and have some ideas on that.
Yeah, we kind of did a little email exchange with some other administrators last week. Everybody's in the same boat right now, unfortunately. Yeah. We discussed incentives, hiring incentives, and basically everybody who was on the email string, we can't do that. There were some other incentives that were discussed. Maybe for a new hire, they get 100 hours of paid leave put in their bank immediately, or things that are not monetary upfront. I mean, yes, they're going to cost the county at some point, obviously, but it's not like some of these agencies are paying $20,000 if you sign the paper and go to work for them. I mean, that's just not feasible here. Maybe some paid.
I mean, maybe it is. Maybe that's the cost of admission. To actually get somebody in the door is to provide some of those kind of incentives. I mean, because obviously, what we're doing right now isn't having a lot of success. So.
And I know, speaking some places that have done that, if it's a $10,000 signing bonus, well, it's not $10,000 up front. It's $2,500 a year. They sign a contract for 4 years, and they get $2,500 a year. And if they breach that contract, they pay that money back to the county. So it's not just a big pile of money. There you go. Thanks for coming. Yeah.
Okay. So currently, what's the percentage of calls that you get from the city of Grand Marais? I know when we met about a year and a half ago, it was around a third.
I'd say it's probably the same, might be a little higher. I mean, the majority of Cook County's population is Grand Marais, and that's why we want to provide that service. If we had those 2 deputies working the county, like I said, there's going to be some lag time between response. And the other thing is, those deputies are going to be, if they're just get out into, say they get to Tofty and they're gonna do something out there, and those are called the cities, they're running back and forth. It's, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. It's, I don't know. I don't know.
And actually, I mean, with the population growth that we've had, the population of Grand Marais is about a quarter of the total county population.
Right.
Because it's about 1,350.
Right.
And we have 5,600
Right.
people in the county.
And actually, the, area outside of the city of Grand Marais has grown at a higher percentage than within the city, so.
Yeah, and like I said before, the patrol deputies for the city, it's not just the Grand Marais city limits. They go west out to just about to Cascade. They go east, 5 Mile Rock area, and they go north up to the golf course. So, I mean, they encompass all that area. And I mean, I shouldn't even say the golf course. Sometimes it's the airport. Or Headstrom's or that. So, I mean, yeah, when you encompass that area, you are adding quite a bit of population as well.
And then what about, we have someone in Grand Portage too, no?
We don't.
We don't?
Grand Portage, during COVID, they were having some troubles up there because the casino, I mean, the border was closed, so they were losing revenue. And we kind of just agreed that we would do away with that contract, and so they weren't paying for something up there right anymore.
So we respond to calls up there.
Right.
When they need service, but there's no one up there.
Okay.
So that population, the way it goes in the summer too, you're not just dealing with a few thousand residents, you're dealing with hundreds.
Oh, absolutely.
There's times at the big RVOs and all the other resorts up the trail and all of that, so
Mhm.
it's a huge deal from, let's say, June until October.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And then you have, even in the winter, it's huge.
And it starts again.
Ski season, the snowmobiles, and yeah, it's, mhm.
We should actually have more law.
Well, that's the other part of this equation. So I just have those 2 deputies. Those are the 2 openings. I had another position,
You're
the
hoping for an
investigator for 2024, and
Yeah.
then the 2 marine unit positions. So I mean, ultimately, we need 5, and we can't get any. So pretty soon we'll have a brand new boat.
No.
I'll drive it.
What about veterans? I mean, we have young veterans in this community, and I don't know what they come, and if they come back here, I don't know what they do. I mean, I don't know who they are, but
Mhm.
would they be,
There's part of the statute, if you've served a certain number of years in the military, you can forego law enforcement school, come back and take, the equivalency test, the rest of the first aid part of it, the firearms. So there is that clause for military veterans. Other than that, the state's pretty hardcore about you have to meet these certain standards, certain expectations before you can get a peace officer license. So, I wish it was like some states where, and I think, and don't quote me on this, but I think the state of Wisconsin, I think you can just go to their, get hired and go to their academy. And I should say, the state of Minnesota is like that, the state patrol. I mean, if you have a 4-year degree in anything, you can be accepted into their academy, and you don't have to do the rest of everything, what we had to go through too. I mean, a minimum of 2-year degree, 12 weeks of skills, take the post test, that whole thing. But yeah, it's difficult to get licensed in Minnesota. And there was some talk a while back about, the possibility of lowering those standards on a state level. We kind of fought back at that. The sheriffs and the chiefs of police fought back on that, said that's not the answer. That's, we don't want to just, because we can't get people to work doesn't mean we should lower our standards.
so you're not considering arming the citizenry like in some states?
We
They're
cannot
already
do that, yeah.
Oh, yes, that's true, but like it's King's Star or something like that.
Oh,
Well, none of the options are are good, but I think option 3 might be the most tenable at this, at this juncture, just considering staff. And that seems like the best for our staff.
Right.
Maybe not best for coverage, I don't know, just as far as the relationship with the city, but just where we're at.
I think, yes, I agree. And maybe we would try it for a while, and if it creates a rat's nest, maybe we have to look at something else.
Yeah.
I think, personally, I think option 3 would give us the opportunity then to, obviously, when we get fully staffed again, to renegotiate a contract with the city. Obviously, that would put that on the table. Yeah, we can give it a try. Like I said, there's there's so many other considerations that I haven't even thought of that could happen by taking those deputies. And like I said, we're not abandoning the city. We're not saying you get no more coverage. It's just
It's
that
just a more equitable
yeah.
coverage given our situation.
Do you know if city hiring police is at the same standards as?
It is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it could be longer wait times, but, when I've talked to, people in Grand Portage or people out in Tofty or people up the trail, well, they have longer wait times. I mean, sometimes it's an hour before somebody can get there. We for certain calls, yes, we're going to drop everything we're doing and go. But there may be calls, that we do deal with in the city, a loose dog or something like that. That's okay. Yeah, we're going to get there, but it's going to be a while.
We have to prioritize when resources are short.
Right.
Definitely. And I like the idea of if we were to move to that model, it gives us time to then think about a contract for the future, a service agreement, which is updated, and it gives us time to kind of get ready for that once we are fully staffed.
And we were going to have a staff meeting on Tuesday, and I wanted to discuss this with my staff, obviously, get some of their input, and let's let them know what's going on. We didn't have it because of the search going on, but I emailed them all yesterday, basically with this and some other things, so at least they're aware of what we're faced with and what we're thinking now.
Well, has the city been apprised of any of this?
We've met repeatedly over the years. I mean, I was part of a discussion a year and a half ago about the fact that, the contract needed work. So it's nothing new.
So they're
But
aware
what's
that-
new is that we are now even more short in terms of staffing than we were back then.
No, and that's a good point, because if we did decide to do that, I would want to sit down with the city council and the city administrator and say, hey, this is, unfortunately, this is where we're at right now, and we need to consider the entire county, number one. Yes, I realize the city of Grand Marais is the hub usually for the busy time of the year. But when we can't get people to hire, I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, if we lost another one, we
Well, and we may have to look at, flexibly scheduling, which I know is a challenge, differently in the tourist season than we do in the slower season.
yes, there's that. And I've considered, well, we have one deputy now who lives in Finland, and I've considered the possibility of if we were able to hire people, they could live in Silver Bay, but the kicker is call time, so they're on call. And the deputy who lives in Finland, his mother still lives in Tofty, so he has to leave his squad car in Cook County. We won't let him take that to Lake County, and then he has to be at his mother's place at 4 a.m. when he's on call to take calls. Well, if we had somebody that we decide, okay, yes, you can live in Silver Bay because you can afford a place and there's a place to rent or buy, you have to leave your squad car in Cook County. And how do they drive back and sit in their squad car at 4 a.m.? in case there's a call. Or, the other thing we considered was during union negotiations, maybe bumping up the call pay to where it's worth it, where the deputies in Cook County can bid on it and say, yes, I'll take these days of call because it's worth it for me monetarily to do that. So we're trying to think everywhere outside the box that we can right now.
We've talked many times about the fact that, most of the resorts around here, they've acquired housing for their employees because that's the only way they can staff up. And, I've said before, I really think that we need to think about either owning or leasing some housing that we can use to land people to apply for county jobs. Because it's just, that barrier is so high. And if we don't have a landing place for people, we're not going to get them.
That's what I've been hearing, at least from
Yeah.
departments.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to say, I think, I've done some comparisons with other sheriff's offices in northeast Minnesota, and our wages are right there with them. But, even if you're making $80,000 a year, you can't afford a $400,000 house. It doesn't work.
If you can find them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I think, considering all the ins and outs, the greatest, preserving what we have seems like the highest priority. We gotta keep the deputies that we have.
Mhm.
And so we don't wanna spread them any thinner than we absolutely have to. So that's why I'm most interested in option 3, because that seems like,
Mhm.
of the tough options, that seems like the best one.
Right.
The sooner the city knows about that, the better.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
And we have,
yeah.
well, we have till October 1st.
Right. And that's, it's just, what are you gonna do? What are they, what are any of us gonna do, are they gonna do? There's other communities around the state
Oh, yeah.
dealing with this, or I guess
They have
others
none.
too, but, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's like, okay, we're not there, but if we can,
Well, I like the idea of assigning that Administrator Yorkie said, $20,000, you keep 4 years, you make no commitment, but they do have to sleep somewhere.
That's, yeah.
Well,
You
and,
do it
and
kind
down
of-
the line, maybe, that's something we can take a look at, but till more housing gets built, we can't count on that, so. Shovels in the ground, things built, and then we can discuss that. But any other questions for Sheriff Eliason, or any other thoughts that you have to share with us?
I have no more good news.
I
And
just-
did you come with some?
Thank you for trying to give us different options too.
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I really appreciate the work you've done on this,
Mhm.
Pat. And really, I just want to say, publicly, really appreciate the sacrifices that our sheriff's deputies are making to try to keep, squads on the road and make sure that we're able to meet public needs around law enforcement. It's a really tough situation.
And I would like to add, I saw some police officers, sheriff, deputies, Fisherman's Picnic walking downtown.
Yes.
That was great for the little kids to see.
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thanks for all you do.
Yeah.
And, keep us informed of kind of what the deputies are thinking
Sure.
as you have those conversations,
I will.
just to keep us as informed and up to date as possible.
Okay.
it might be worthwhile too, just talking about next steps with the city time-wise. what
Yeah.
that might be,
Mhm.
because they're going through their budgeting, and if
Mhm.
they know that they're not gonna be paying this, that would be awesome. If
Mhm.
we can solidify that plan while we're budgeting, that's
Right.
also important, so,
Mhm.
I'll let you guys figure out timing for that.
Okay.
Another meeting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you,
Sure.
we appreciate it. All right.
Now you can beat up on Matt.
Good luck at golf.
Well, at this point, I guess let's flip over to our highway department and talk a little bit about where you're at with the agreement, kind of some of your thoughts, Matt. I know we've heard from Robbie in writing, but we appreciate you being here today as well.
Of course, yeah, I'm kind of Robbie standing right now. So a couple things. One, I can tell you how it currently works, because I think that's helpful to review before we even talk about the agreement. Currently, the county plows all roads, both city and county roads, north of Highway 61. The city plows all roads south of Highway 61. That includes sidewalks. So, you know, County Road, Wisconsin, Broadway, those are both south of 61, but the city takes care of those for winter maintenance. We take care of everything north of Highway 61. Currently, the county bills the city for bituminous, which is what we call cold patch, which is used to fix asphalt. Calcium chloride, so that's what's applied to gravel roads within the city to keep dust down, and culvert steaming. There is no accounting currently of salt sand use. So the city removes salt sand from our salt sand pile, and there's no reimbursement. So that's how it currently works. Then if you go to that 1979 agreement,
Even older than the last one.
even older, and we read it and it doesn't make much sense to us. We actually had to send it to Molly and say, what does this all mean? And I think that email got distributed to you guys. Yeah, so that's sort of where we stand right now. I guess there's several scenarios going forward. I think first and foremost, we would really like to see sort of the current operations in writing, or a modified version of the current operations in writing, because currently that doesn't exist. And it feels like we have no backing to, for example, deal with an invoice not being paid by the city, that kind of thing. We have no recourse. Second scenario would be the city plows city roads, so it takes over all the plowing of roads within the city. Obviously, that's not our choice, but we can pull out of the city. And then the county plows all the county roads that are within the city. And then the third option is sort of a mix of the two. And we'll call it the Robbie plan, where the county, county continues to plow County Roads 7 and 12, so the Gunflint Trail as well as 7, because those are through roads, they go out into the county. And then we, in turn, by statute, can pay the city for plowing county roads within the city. So that would include 5th Avenue, Broadway, Wisconsin, and 8th. Yeah, I think I got them all. So those are several options we have right now. If you read the 1979 agreement, either entity can decide that the agreement no longer works for them, as long as it happens before December 31st, I believe.
Yeah, notice
Correct.
has to occur 60 days.
60 days before December
Right.
31st, yeah. But obviously, that would leave the city in a position, and I know that there have been some discussions with city leadership on this. I know over the course of history, previous engineers have talked to the city about this, and I don't think I think it's kind of been business as usual. So that's where we stand with that agreement. There really is no current reflection of what we do, current agreement that outlines what the county does within the city.
One of the things in reading the contract it talks about is current rates, and how are rates established?
Current rates for,
So it talks about the county shall provide a similar statement, and the city is statement about current rates for charges for time and mileage. So how do you go about that?
I don't think that's, well, I'll say this. We track all the time that we spend on city roads within city limits.
Okay.
That does not get charged to the city. The city does not account for its time on county roads within the city.
All right.
So there's a discrepancy on what kind of numbers we can produce. But like I said, we don't charge, my understanding is we do not charge for any plowing within the city. So that accounting does not take place.
Okay,
We do have those numbers, though.
all right.
Yep.
I think,
You mentioned that you do some chloride on gravel roads within the city.
Yep.
It seems to me it would be much better if they paved it, and then you wouldn't have to deal with that.
It's true, and they I think contract through us, so they just piggyback on our chloride contract, and then we bill them for that.
It isn't much though, I don't think.
Just a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
has there been any discussion, I imagine there has been, about the alleys in the city and the fact that those are gravel, well, I wouldn't even say gravel, some of them are just dirt and sand and are washing out, kind of, what discussion have you had around that? Because I've heard
None in my
concerns.
Yeah, none in my conversations have not included that. We also don't plow the alleys.
Right.
So, yeah, honestly, we don't think about it much. And
Okay.
nor do we hear many complaints, because I think generally people know not to call us for, alley maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm glad they don't, so. Thank you, public.
Commissioner Mills, you have some experience with city property. Over the years, kind of what have you heard from the public about city and county plowing and how it works out, plowing and maintenance?
I don't know that I've gotten any specific feedback from the public. Just the conversations, I guess that might be relevant to this conversation, would have been when I was a city councilor. And just the recognition of the age of these agreements, and that if they were updated, there would be significant adjustments. And presumably in the county's favor, and so I wouldn't say we were chomping to pursue those as a city council. So I think it is really going to have to come from the county, brought to the city to get this moving and bring it forward. And I mean, talking with Mayor Benson, I think she understands. I also have a meeting with another city councilor this evening to talk about this a little bit. I don't know to what detail or much beyond that, but it's a similar situation in my mind with the law enforcement agreement. These need to be updated, we've got the short end of the stick right now. The county does. The distribution of services is not equitable considering the costs, and the sooner that the city is aware of these issues, the better, because like I said before, the budgeting process and just being able to try to get some kind of handle on this rather than just come October, because that'd be it's already gonna be very difficult, but that would be exceptionally difficult. As far as a realistic transition is concerned, getting these agreements up to snuff or doing something different, it wouldn't surprise me if practically this had to go another year, but I don't want to sacrifice the services that we're trying to provide to the 80% of the county that lives out of the city. I don't want to sacrifice those services just to kind of cushion this transition. So I'm not really sure how best to go about it, but it's another sooner than later situation, I'd say. The city won't like any of these conversations. It's going to be really hard. City taxpayers, city council, city administration, it's not going to be pleasant. It's going to hurt. I'm a city taxpayer. It's going to hurt. But it's better transparency. It's better accountability. It's really understanding costs and fair distribution of services. So I think as far as the county organization is concerned and the community of the county, this is in the county's best interest. That's as much insight as I can give, I think.
Commissioners, any thoughts?
Just updating is required, I think. It's been way too long.
I think so, but I agree with Commissioner Mills. I think updating this is going to take some time. I don't see by October 1st us getting a brand-new agreement put together. Although one of the things I was thinking about is that ability for the county to pay the city for those roads, as you referred to the Robbie plan, might be an interim step into them renegotiating this contract and making sure that it's up to date and equitable. So I'm thinking about that as a possibility. Because it would not impact the city as much and in a short term.
Well, the city would have to staff up to plow all the city streets, and I don't know, just, you know, us trying to hire, highway people, the sheriff trying to hire deputies, everyone trying to hire anyone, I could see that as being, not so practical, but that might be what we have to do, even with that. I am curious though, and I guess we didn't follow up with Robbie about it, just about Fifth Avenue West, because of how critical that road is for the hospital access. I thought that we might still want to keep that on the county list.
So we do 7, 12, and Fifth Avenue.
That seemed like important routes that we'd want to stay on top of and then not pay them to plow Fifth. But that's not my expertise, so.
And Matt, you'd certainly have the dollar amount for that, or could easily calculate that for us.
Yeah, and that would significantly lower the number of miles that they would actually be plowing, therefore lower the dollar amount that we'd be paying them considerably, which might not allow them then to
Sure.
make up the difference in staffing. I don't know.
Yep, a bit of a dance there.
Right.
Do they have equipment?
Not like us.
Well,
Should I outline?
absolutely.
One of the proposals that we have too is, we actually have a municipal truck that we bought in, I think we purchased it in 2017, paid for it in 2018. It's a 2018 model. And it's a tandem, or excuse me, it's not a tandem. It's essentially what you'd call a dump truck with a full wing front plow. Looks like any of our other yellow trucks. But it is shorter, more compact, and for municipal use. We currently don't have a need for it, really. I don't quite know the rationale in purchasing it, but it has still on its very first oil change. It's brand spanking new, essentially, and it's ready to be deployed. So if the city, if this were part of a negotiation, certainly we would see, in exchange for payments, we give this to the city. It's a $200,000 truck that then they would work out for several years. That's one option. We don't obviously want to force their hand with that, but the
But it might
equipment
be a
thing-
great benefit to them.
Yep, and the equipment is solved at that point.
Yeah, that's a really interesting opportunity.
Maybe not relevant, maybe none of my business, but have there been discussions about giant snow blowers? When I grew up in Grand Rapids, they would plow all of the snow to the center of the street and then take the snow blower and put it in a dump truck. Just,
Yeah, I think when you get into
larger.
cities and different situations, you have to employ different tactics, but
Mhm.
either way, you need people to
Mhm.
staff it. And,
AI though, right?
yeah, right, exactly. That's the next step for sure. No, we certainly discussed snow removal like that.
Okay, sure.
And, honestly, as the county, if we ended up having to take over county roads south of 61, we would have to change our operation slightly. I don't know that it means different equipment. I don't believe it does, but I guess we're not aiming for that scenario either. We're open to it if we have to, and if it resolves this sort of ongoing uncomfortable arrangement, and I will call it an uncomfortable arrangement. So yeah, we're willing to do that, but it would probably mean having to truck some snow out of the city. We have trucks, however, so.
Would you have to hire another employee?
Nope. Yeah, and if, you know, again, I don't think, Robbie certainly doesn't want to get in the weeds on this right now, but if we took somebody out of the city, it would mean likely either shortening routes or being able to talk about expanding routes. We don't think that should be a distracting topic right now, but if we took somebody out of the city, that would mean more options for the rest of the county.
That's
Increased service.
you know,
So-
that's what we hear about often, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's just, we want more and more people outskirts, just where things are more affordable, and that'd be a way to somewhat address that, or start to address that, or try to address
And I
that.
think in the law enforcement discussion, we talked about how the rest of the county is growing at a faster pace than obviously
Right.
in the city limits.
Yep.
Now, currently, when we have a big snow, what's the amount of time it takes for all of the county roads to get plowed?
We're supposedly, according to our snow removal policy, it's 2 days,
Mhm.
but it only takes us 1.
Wow.
Yep. So we can clear all 350 miles of roadway in 1 day. Plus, you know, the grade and some other roads
Mhm.
we do in addition to that.
And just for the public, so they know the grade is being plowed, because if something happens on 61, that is our route in and out of the county. There is no other way. So we are obligated to keep the grade open. It's not a luxury.
Right.
Other questions or comments for Matt?
Next steps,
Well,
approach the city, or?
if the commissioners would like us to, you know, come up with drafts of plans or suggest things, we certainly can. So I guess I want to throw that out there.
It sounds like having some information about including Fifth Avenue would be one scenario that would be valuable to have.
I do think in terms of the timing of establishing new contracts, I mean, yes, it would be a very short timeline, but I'm not totally convinced that we couldn't come up with a draft of something, and, you know, share that with the city and say, here's what we'd like to see. City, what do you think? And, you know, start that conversation. I mean, time is of the essence. I mean,
It is.
October 31st will be coming very quickly. But I don't think it's impossible.
It's encouraging.
Of course, that's all somewhat dependent on the county attorney's schedule too, so.
Sure.
Well, we will visit with the county attorney and you know, have a lot to discuss. But I'm just appreciative of all the options that are laid out here. It gives all of us a chance to think about those different options, and also in conversation with the city to look at what will be helpful and beneficial to their citizens as well.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner.
forgive me. I've been fixated on the third option, the Robbie plan. Can you go over the other two options just so I can share those with the counselor at my?
Yeah, I mean, I think one is current operations, but all
Sorry.
reflected in writing.
Yeah.
Who pays for what and why, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And then you can actually look at it on paper and see if it makes sense. Obviously, we don't think it does totally, but, you know. Second option is city plows city, county plows county. So what that would mean is we would have to take over part of what's south of 61, which would be a little bit of an unknown for us as an operation, but again, there are talented people at the highway department who can figure that out. But it would mean the city takes over a lot more mileage of their city roads. Biggest implication for the city, I think, if that happens. or one of the biggest implications for the city. Then the third is, this is gonna stick, the Robbie plan, where we maintain operations on 712 and potentially on Fifth Avenue, which the number of that is escaping me, the county road number, but yeah. And obviously all sidewalks associated with those too.
Yeah.
Okay, because that was a question Mayor Benson had, is what about the sidewalks?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is maybe a little more extreme, but kind of when we were in conversations with Mayor Benson, and Fourth Avenue West was brought up.
Right, but
And
that
the-
is no longer a county road.
Right, and the ownership of which was brought up and questioned, and we have the documentation, and
Right.
it seems to be pretty clear, and, you know, we were gonna tear it up and give it back in good condition, even though we'd already legally given it back. We can do that for any of the county roads in the city limits. So, Wisconsin, is that something we want as a county road? That maybe is, again, a bigger discussion, but Wisconsin Street, why is that a county road? I could see why it was a county road, maybe way back, but now, not so sure. I could maybe still see Broadway, but where I'm going with this is we can just do that. We can just say, there you go, city, it's yours. And so I don't know that would help our community, or the city could get more funding that way, maybe. I don't know, we would but there's more options, I guess, too.
So if we own Wisconsin, do we have to pave it and curb it and do all of that?
That's my understanding, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, why do we do that?
Well, maybe before there were houses up here.
And Broadway as well.
That's, yeah.
Oh,
Something
that's-
from long,
That's
long
a good
ago.
conversation to have.
And maybe that's a further conversation, but it's, you know, I start thinking about those costs, and sure, we can plow the county roads in the city, but we could also turn over the
Relinquish.
county roads in the city, to the city, but.
And I think at some point, again, I'm gonna delve into dangerous water here, because the number of miles on
Right.
roads 1 through 23, county roads have direct implication for how much money we get.
Yeah,
Just as a reminder before we start getting
throwing
into
away
roads.
roads, right, totally.
Just as a reminder.
Yep, oh,
Yep.
yeah. No, there'd have to be a lot of financial analysis done there.
Yes.
Anything else for Matt?
Wonder if they'll do all three contracts at one meeting at the city level. That's a lot. I mean, unpleasant conversations.
Tear that Band-Aid
There
off.
have been a lot of challenging conversations, but, you know, the point is, look at the highway department, a 44-year-old agreement that we have to take the time to get it done and updated. So, we have our work to do, that's for sure.
So again, I like trying to focus on an option. So I like the third option, the Robbie plan. But it might be helpful for the city to see these options spelled out.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna like the first option the most. And it might be the most systematic way about revising our agreements, but I think the discrepancies are great enough that from the county side, the third option's gonna make more sense. But that'll just have to be one of those conversations,
Mhm.
which I'd love to be a part of.
Well, thanks for doing all the work to get us ready to have that conversation with the city.
Yeah, ongoing.
Definitely. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. And on to contract number 3. Behind door number 3 is the Y.
So this is something that, there's been an agreement in place ever since the Y was created, wherein the city pays the county for a portion of the operating costs every year. And I was looking at recent budgets, that amount has been in the neighborhood of $110,000 to $120,000 a year. For the current budget year, it's like $121,000. And why this is relevant to the previous conversations is that in talking with the city administrator about the possibility of making changes to contracts that would incur new costs for the city, the administrator has suggested that if they did have to take on significant new costs, they likely need to reduce or eliminate the contribution that they make to the Y. So that's, and I mean, obviously, it's a conversation that we need to have, but, I mean, adding new costs for them and for us, I mean, that translates directly into levy increases. So I kind of understand the argument, but, the Y is located in Grand Marais. The users of the Y are primarily people who live in and around Grand Marais. If you're living at the end of the Sawville Trail or the Arrowhead, you're probably not using the Y a whole lot. So, that's part of this whole conversation is how do those pieces fit together and what is the overall cost impact on both of our organizations.
And does the city, do you have a number for their annual contribution?
The city's contribution for the current year is $121,000. Yeah.
And what do we spend? What do we spend on?
Well,
Well,
a lot.
the building,
I mean, it is our most expensive building, both in terms of its cash replacement value and also its operating costs. And a big part of that is the pool. I mean, the pool is just,
the pool.
Yeah.
the pool is just a very expensive thing to keep running. To heat in the winter, we've had the heaters for the water. We've had ongoing issues with those. Maintenance has been working on those just in the last couple of weeks. So it's an expensive operation.
Pools are always an expensive operation. If we think back to when we had the municipal pool and we were in there pumping and trying to get water and wait for the water to get warm, I mean, that was a problem, and that's one of the reasons that the city is involved with the Y, because of the pool. But, you look at the purpose of the agreement, and the purpose is to share costs, and we want to share those equitably. Yes, it's our building, and we do need to maintain that building, but we have a lot of other expenses as well. We're holding the liability insurance.
So, I mean, our cost is varied from year to year, but it's been in the 300.
Yeah. And I think we have to look at this agreement separately. It's not about what happens with the other two service agreements. These are all separate. And they're different kinds of services, so I think we need to look at them individually. I think our priority needs to be making sure that our sheriff's department and our highway department have decisions that are made with the city in a very timely fashion because of the budget. I think those two need to be our top priority. This one I see underneath those. It's still very important. It impacts the budget in a great way. But I look at clearing our roads and the sheriff's department as just a huge safety issue. And safety to me is always number one. How do other commissioners see them prioritized?
Well, to tell you the truth, I wasn't aware we were gonna talk about contracts. I thought we were gonna talk about CIP, but it all works in together, so
Mhm.
I didn't get any information about this, so. But I would say the why needs to be looked at by Molly, of course, and update whatever we can, but the other two are more important. Was I supposed to get something?
Should have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in the,
If you want.
No.
It was in the board packet,
yep.
in the meeting packet.
Well, Madam Chair, I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but I'm just trying to go down different roads. I went right to Article 10, term and termination. And,
Is this for the Y?
correct,
Yeah.
yeah, the community center, yeah, the Y. The agreement shall remain in full force and effect for a period of 25 years from its effective date and shall automatically renew in 5-year increments thereafter unless the city or county within 180 days of the expiration of the respective period provides written notice of termination to the other party.
Mhm.
Notwithstanding the foregoing, this agreement may be terminated by mutual written agreement of the city and county. So part of that sounds like one person can terminate it, and the other part sounds like both people need to terminate it. And so I guess and by person I meant party.
That's a good question for our county attorney.
Mhm. Also, I mean, it's pretty irrelevant at this point. The agreement talks about the costs, the staffing costs. The city shall pay half of the staffing costs. Well, our agreement with the Y has changed 3 or 4 times
Yeah.
since this, but our agreement with the city has not
Has
changed
not.
since this.
Again,
And so it's
another
not-
outdated
Yeah, it's
agreement.
not kept up. And so right now, we don't pay any staffing. We only take care of the building, and the Y does the staffing costs and all that. So a lot of this is irrelevant for that. Same, I mean, similar with the, so personnel costs, they said, I think similar with the operating losses. That's not really how things are calculated. I think it's just that flat defined amount, right? 121, I guess, this year. Or
It's,
does it change based on our costs?
well, they pay 110,000, 100 on operations, 10,000 capital, and then there's an inflationary aspect to it.
Okay, thank you. But that's still not based on any changing,
No.
Operating
It was-
costs,
It
yeah.
was assumed that we were paying the YMCA for the operation,
Mhm.
and, as that agreement worked. And now we're just paying for building maintenance, which turns out to be at least as expensive and more expensive than a share of the Y's operating costs.
Mhm. Have we ever looked at the membership of the Y in terms of percentage that live in the city of Grand Marais versus outside? Is that
They have
information ever
that.
been- They do have that?
yeah.
I don't recall seeing it, so that would be something I'd like to take a look
It
at.
fluctuates.
And COVID wreaked havoc on
Mhm.
Ys and nationally. I think 2 shut down in Minneapolis just this last month.
Yeah.
But Cook County YMCA is like the #1 Y for membership per capita in
Interesting.
the whole country. It's just like, that was before COVID. I don't know where it's at now.
It was like 1,000, 800, 900,000, 900.
It seems to me I'm
1,000?
remembering a 900
Before
and some,
COVID.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's almost to where it was.
Okay.
But I don't know that it's quite there yet.
So that means a third of the population are members of the Y?
Well, if it's 1,000, it's a
Well, yeah. it's not-
Yeah,
Fifth
it's
or
20%,
something,
less than,
Which is still a high number.
that's
Yes.
very significant.
And I think that's like a family membership count as well. And I've heard bigger numbers than that.
Oh, sure.
So that if, the number of people attending on memberships, I've heard is a bigger number.
Okay.
And those are not probably considered singles and
I
families.
bet you're right, yeah.
That would be good data to get. And again, this is something that's just so old and outdated, we just need to kind of start over.
Yeah, I suspect when we start talking with the city more directly, you know, there's gonna be kind of a holistic approach, and I think that's important, but I think it's also important to have accountability and being able to segment things out, break it out, so we can look at things and see what they cost and why they cost and how we can improve that or whatever. So I agree with the holistic, you know, values, but I want to try to, you know, be as discreet as far as breaking it apart as possible. And so when we're talking about, again, Fifth Avenue West, like for our communities, public safety, health and safety, I think that's pretty important one. When we're talking about the community center, why, for the health of our community, I think that's pretty important. And again, law enforcement, public safety, it's holistic, that's very important. It's just when we're trying to figure out budgetary problems, it's really important to be able to identify these clearly and address them. So we got to do both. We got to see the whole, but we also have to break it down. So we'll see how the council takes it.
Well, this is one I think that, again, our county attorney's office will need to work with us on. But again, this has a 6-month window for changing the contract. These others are of the essence like now. So. Brady, anything you'd like to add either about the why or about all of these contracts from your perspective? Because you have lived through all of these for a number of years.
Not the one that was 44 years.
Yeah, not that one.
Well, just, this is one of 2 agreements, the library and this one, that they're written such that the city only pays their portion on property taxes.
Mhm.
They don't pay the county portion, just point that out again. So we take, when we figure our property taxes, we have let's call it a 50% tax percentage. In the city, it's a 40-some% tax levy because we deduct this portion of the levy and the library portion of the levy.
Okay.
So they're just paying whatever, their half of the library and their 100-some thousand of the Y, not the other portion. That are paid by everybody else.
All right.
Something like that.
That's good for the public to be clear on. All right.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add on those agreements. I wasn't even aware of I knew that there were highway agreements, but I've never seen, until this came up, I've never seen that agreement.
So, wasn't it Tracy that brought it to our attention?
The street maintenance agreement, I mean, we've had that.
Yeah.
You guys have looked at it in highway meetings, but I'm just saying,
Correct.
from my history.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
You usually look to me for history, but I have no history on that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I knew something existed, I didn't know what.
Well, lots of legal work to do.
Indeed.
Yeah, there's section 2 amendments to this agreement, renegotiation, so that's pertinent, and then
Yep.
also the dispute resolution, section 15.
Yep.
Fun, right?
Not my idea of fun. Sorry, Commissioner.
It looks like the Cook County YMCA is at 78% of what it was compared to February of 2020.
Okay.
And this just has it broken down into units, not people. So there's the whole family thing. But the current units is 407. So that's, or current, it's May.
Okay.
And does it say how many are subsidized, or, we may have a sliding scale.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. This is just membership. The units in 2020, February 2020, were 530 units.
Okay.
It does break it down in the different types of units. So it can tell you adult, family one person, family two person. I don't know what a family one person means. Why wouldn't you just be? I don't know. Yeah, why wouldn't you just be an adult then? Young adult and youth, and I can't actually read all those numbers, so that's not very helpful, sorry.
This is just for what it's worth, but on the library agreement, I assume one of the reasons that the county is involved, and some of it's just fairness, it makes sense, but is to access the Arrowhead Library
Right.
system.
Yeah.
You have to
You
have a
have to.
certain amount of support from the county in order to access that.
Mhm.
And we're generally, not a huge amount, but significantly above that. So we could lower our levy if we really needed to, wanted to, our portion of it, and still be able to access the Arrowhead Library system. That would be negating the agreement we have, come to a different agreement. Just so you know that. I'm not suggesting we do.
Leverage.
I'm not sure that's a step we'd want to take.
I don't.
That's a quote from a sci-fi novel called, is it Battlefield Earth? Is that what it? Is that? No.
I thought it was from Battlefield, Cook County. I don't know.
Right.
It's apparently significant around the state because we get the letter every year during budget.
Mhm.
So I'm familiar with it.
Oh.
Here is your required amount to access the library system.
Well, thank you for that info. And now you have an opportunity to give us a lot more information as we transition to our budget and financial management plan.
So-
How's that for a transition?
So we did meet.
Because I printed two.
We had a virtual meeting with Bruce Kimmel on Monday, and talked about, making the changes to the FMP, the financial management plan, to reflect the possibility of getting state bonding. And we were not able to get that from Bruce by today. So we'll have to provide that at a later time. I think what we can do is probably just like email that to the board when it's available.
Yeah.
But, we do have some updated information about the budget and levy for next year. As I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we did find out yesterday that our health insurance premium increases are going to be 7.3% for next year, which is below the 10% placeholder that we had put in. And so, Brady, I don't know, do you want to project the updated sheet, or did you print copies?
I didn't print copies, but
I can make copies real quick.
yeah. If you,
Throw it up on the screen.
yeah, so that's the.
And actually, what I can do, so you've got your computer, I could forward.
I can get mine out.
Yeah.
Okay. Because Brady did send out an updated
Okay.
version of the spreadsheet, so I will send that to you all.
I figured you were gonna do a quick PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
I'm all PowerPointed out for the week.
Oh, you want to send it some?
I'm going to send you something in just a sec.
It's great news about the health insurance.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh,
We were relieved. I was hoping it might even be a little bit lower than that, but anything below our
Nine.
placeholder is a good thing. So,
It wasn't, it wasn't a huge savings, you know, 2 point whatever percent.
Mhm.
About 22,000 in the general fund, about 10 in highway, and so forth. About 11 in human services, so maybe 43,000 or so overall. But, you know, it could be so much worse. That's what we found over the years. Instead of 10, it could be
Jenny, if
25.
this is easier for you to read, I think that than your phone, this is going to be easier for you.
Yeah, this is, that's the one. Very current.
Yeah, so the one that you should be looking at, it has today's date at the top and 7.3% health insurance.
Mhm.
And so, like Brady said, I mean, in the general fund, that reduced costs by about $22,000. We had a slightly smaller decrease in public health and human services because there were some other costs that went up slightly.
Yeah, they use that, there were other things that they found in their budget, so they updated a couple of expense items, and they reduced Andrea, the board taking that position, she's a lower, who she replaced, so they just netted all of that out. So they saved about 4,000 net, but, you know, there's still savings on health insurance of about 4 overall with their other changes.
Did we get highways numbers?
Yeah, highways in there too.
Yeah.
Same thing, what they did, it isn't all reflected directly in they left their levy alone. So they saved just short of 11,000
Mhm.
on the health insurance, but they just decided to use less of they were putting some of the ARP money in their budget to offset their levy. That's the 1 million plus that they
Yep.
have.
Yeah. there.
So they reduced that. So what that does is gives us more to work with to offset general levy or to save and offset it, this year for 2024 or to offset it for 2025. So they decided just to leave their levy alone and just not use that fund balance.
So that puts the preliminary at 8.74 at this time.
Yeah, if we're approving it today with no other changes, that would be the number 8.74. But you can see we're not using any general fund balance
Right.
to do that. So
Roughly how much general fund balance could we use and still be within our,
I didn't calculate that. I don't think you need to get to where you want to go. So 2 things. Technically, our fund balance, I just got some numbers back. Our technical fund balance in the audit is lower than last year.
Hmm.
Or unassigned.
Hmm.
But that's because we're required to value our investments. And there was a big hit around the state on a lot of these agency funds because of the way the interest rates went up. But we talked about that with our auditors, and ignoring that, which we really should as a government ignore, because we're not going to sell all of our investments on January 31st. That's what it reflects. It's a $1.3 million hit that they technically have to put in toward levy. They didn't have to 10 years ago. So anyway, this is a recent change. irregardless of that, we actually came out positive about 942,000 in the general fund. So adding to our unassigned fund balance, ignoring the investment
So
requirement.
technically, we had a 1.3 million hit, but practically, we had a 900,000
Yeah.
increase.
Yeah.
So there's a percentage, I know, target 75%, and so we're,
Yeah, we were over, with all of the things we talked about, we were setting aside 600,000 a year for the BWCA money. We've set aside $500,000 for septic systems. We've got money loaned out for Hoagland Fire Department, all these other things. We were still well over $1 million above the 75%. Now we've added to that. So there's a lot of room above the 75%
Mhm.
for anything you would feel you needed to do, I think. Not that you want to, because we don't know what comes up
Well,
in the future.
And kind of as I was expressing before, what I really saw being our big cost was our capital improvements.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
still the case, but having those better defined gives me a lot more comfort in using that to try to lessen these blows to taxpayers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we still have to pay for the capital. So it's almost, it's a balancing act, right, about what interest rates are gonna be versus what tax rates are gonna be. We don't yet have updates for our
Tax capacity.
tax capacity.
No,
Okay.
he was trying to get that from Rachel, we didn't have it for today, so.
Okay.
Got it.
But if we look at 75% of that 942, we're at, that's 235.5. So that makes a big difference.
Wait, but no,
I was looking at 75% of our 242, our general fund balance. So if we, 75% would be 706,500.
am I just not seeing?
I just went off what he was
Oh, okay,
saying.
okay, okay.
Sorry. There's nothing in the sheet that says that.
Well, except for, I think that was added to the.
Added.
Not what our total fund balance is. That's
Right,
what-
right.
What it increased by, so that.
Increased.
That means, I mean, you could say,
I'm just saying it gives us 235.5 more than,
well,
that we could use, that we could flex.
Yeah, I mean, if you put 500,000 into general fund, use of fund balance, the levy today would be 4.43%.
Mhm.
yeah, and I thought you were saying, well, now I'm confused.
That we had more than that. if
Right.
We needed.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I thought,
towards
okay,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm,
But we don't need it to get down to where you want to get,
Right,
I don't think. I think you're looking to get lower than
yeah.
something like that.
well, yeah, and again, in my mind, it's like, that's awesome,
Yeah.
but if we're just gonna, yeah, I don't have the financial foresight or know-how to know that balance, and I guess that's why we hired Hellers.
Yeah.
That's
Like-
where we want to work on that financial management
Yeah.
plan. I mean, a lot of that is dependent on using, I mean, that looks really good, that plan, but it's dependent on using that sales tax excess
Yeah.
money.
Mhm.
He's got all of that in the plan.
No.
He doesn't have the state bonding money in there. And if you
Okay.
simply, without even spreading it out, if you just looked at the third bonding in 2027, because we've got a big, trying to keep it all below the 10 million,
Mhm.
you know, so that you get the better rate. But then there was a third for the 5-year plan. In that plan, he's got like an 8.3 million bonding in 2027. That's like the third leg of it. And you could say, okay, what if we get this? It wouldn't necessarily go to that exact plan, whatever
Mhm.
that part is, but you'd have the money available for that, and you wouldn't bond for that.
Mhm.
I mean, that's one way to look at it,
Mhm.
Yeah.
in the financial management plan. You got the cash.
What I was bumbling about was just whether or not to spend reserves now because we're gonna have to borrow for the capital in not too long.
Yeah.
You know, and so I was just like, I
Right.
don't know
Yeah.
how to balance
Right,
that.
we just, we've been resisting putting much or any in there because it's just so many unknowns with the EWCA and are there other things you want to use
The other
the sales
thing,
tax
I'm sorry.
for? No, go ahead.
The other thing to remember is part of what we were trying to do this year is to look at the next 2 years.
Mhm.
Because what we didn't want to do is use fund balance and ARPA dollars to artificially depress the levy increase this year and then face a much larger
Big one
increase
next
next year.
year.
So we wanted to smooth that transition. And that's why we don't have anything in general fund balance factored into this,
Yeah.
this picture here.
But we do, you can see here, there's 300,000 down there under LATCF, that's it's one of the other acronyms for ARPA. You gotta know all of them, right? So that leaves us with, and with Lisa not using some of the ARPA. For health insurance, that leaves us with about 852,000 of that available for 2025. Or it could be 20, I think we have to sign it by then, but it could go on another year, but.
Okay.
So, I mean, you could use, instead of general fund, you could use, say, well, okay, we'll use a little more, we don't want to see 7 point or 8 point.
Mhm.
You could split and use some more of that LATCF or ARPA, cut it in half with what you're going to use the following year, or, I mean, there's lots of options.
Mhm. All the stars, those are all the changes, isn't that right? The
Yeah.
updates.
Yeah, those are just some from that preliminary that you first saw.
Mhm.
Like we just talked about, that additional 48,000 stayed in lieu, that was in red. And then the health insurance is just the most recent. Just interesting thing, I made a comment about that 48,000, like how does the state do that? And I asked Bob Thompson, and they do their appraisal every 6 years, and he says, that's us. He said the state relies on counties, that they get that from the counties.
Hmm.
When they give you the DNRs, acquired natural resources land. Those are, every county uses the same formulas basically, so they're just taking our numbers in St. Louis counties and they're all their assessors.
That's what the Fed should do.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's so simple.
Why, they trust us, why doesn't,
Right.
yeah. But, yeah, he said there's potentially some changes in that in the works for future years. All that stuff.
Well, it's good news to be going in a positive direction. Great news on the health insurance, and I know we're gonna be really anxious to hear from Bruce Kimmel.
Yeah, and I'm sorry we didn't have that for you
That's
today.
understandable, it was short notice.
Well, I certainly care about that, but I suspect the bigger factors, I think, is gonna be just our tax capacity. I mean, that always seems to be like, oh, we've got this increase, and all of a sudden, oh, but there's a lot more buildings, you know, so it's how it seems to have been going, but.
The last few years,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's what I'll be drooling over.
So at the September committee of the whole, you guys will be getting a presentation on the proposal to consolidate tax classifications for non-homestead properties that could provide some really good opportunities for Cook County in terms of generating additional revenue while offsetting homestead taxes. So stay tuned.
Yeah,
Awesome.
good possibilities, that's for sure. Other questions for James or Brady on the budget and levy? Thank you for all your spreadsheets. Helps me a lot.
Well, and so, we scheduled this meeting because we wanted to meet before September 12th, which is when like, the preliminary levy is gonna have to be set. And, you know, the preliminary levy doesn't give me a lot of heartburn.
Right.
Because it's just.
It's just our top number.
Yeah, and we just gotta set what we're working within. And so, and then we're always trying to reduce. So after that, I think I would like to have more conversations just about the fund balance and
Mhm.
spending down or not, or whatever, and then the tax capacity, and then the financial management plan. I'm not, so my comfort for September 12th is pretty high. I'm not too worried about that. It's just as more information comes forward, then we can keep changing it. But I know that in the public's eye, that it's headlines, right, the preliminary levy. So, so I understand the sensitivity there. It's just not it just doesn't seem like a big deal.
I think we just keep updating the public as we get more information.
So 8.74 right now for the levy. And any problem going to 9, just because? Are we sure about we can go much lower, or if something comes up, we can't go any higher?
Right.
We can't go higher. I always like to leave a
I
cushion,
know.
as you know from last
I
year,
know.
so.
That's why I'm saying.
Well, and EDA is gonna be that's not on here, right?
No, that's a separate.
Yep.
That still factors into my.
Yeah, and that'll be a significant increase
Yeah.
from last year.
And, yeah,
Most people don't look at the line by line on their tax statement, they look at
Right.
the bottom.
yeah.
Well, just think about it.
Yeah.
If we think 9 would be a little better because of other
Unknowns.
factors.
Mhm.
Deb?
I agree. I agree. You can always go down.
Yeah.
I mean, when we think about our household budgets, we're always planning, and there's a little cushion in there, and this is just a bigger house.
So we'll adjust these fund balance for now to reflect, to take it up to 9.
From highway or DHS?
I have no doubt there'll be
Probably both.
unexpected changes, as there have been.
Right.
People will have job changes between now and then. No, I don't.
Hope Leah's
Never
not
know.
listening to that, she's. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Great conversation and good information. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the guidance.
What, and just for, yes, thank you, I'm sorry. The spreadsheet you sent has historical ones on there too, which is really nice. Don't know if that was intentional or not, but
Historical ones,
not
the different tabs. You know, these are just, the tabs are,
when you update it.
as, this is all for
As
this year.
presented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, as things have evolved, Brady's just saved those previous versions.
It's very, yeah. So for that for perspective for that 9%, right, on 6/30, we're talking 5.7.
Mhm.
And then, you know, there's been updates all along, 7/31, 9.23, 8/2 was at 9.21, 8/15 was at 9.06, and now 8.74. No change in those fund balances.
back in the 20-teens, when we were doing levies that were sky high, this is really a lot less.
Oh.
Only thing is, have we increased other things along the way, you know, to take up the place for wise and all the things that we did back then.
Mhm.
So, but I think we're in a much better position right now, because we have we have the cushions if we have to.
Mhm. Right.
General fund balance.
Yeah, we benefited a lot from the state surplus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And put some of that in semi-permanent. It's on that.
The other thing, we did have ClearGov do a presentation to Public Health and Human Services and Highway today regarding the budgeting software that the
Budget and
Advisory-
facilities.
Budget and Facilities Advisory Committee members got. And, you know, I think if we implement that software next year, which we budgeted to do, we're going to be able to present this information in a much more thorough and easy to understand way. That is the goal. It's going to be a big transition to make, but you know, I think having an online dashboard where residents can go and see exactly what the county budget is, where the dollars are going. There might even be some interactive features that we could include.
It just improves transparency.
It does, and that's really important. It's really important. I want the public to understand what these conversations are about and what the impacts are across programs and services. So,
Did you get a sense from the highway department and PHHS how they felt about the presentation? I mean, or have you not had time to get feedback?
they asked some really good questions, and I think I picked up a sort of healthy sense of skepticism about it. It's like, this is new, and, you know, they're trying to sell a product.
Right.
So, I think that skepticism is healthy. But they're working with a number of counties already in the state of Minnesota, and I think they're working on 4 implementations currently. So we're going to have peers that we can call to kind of get, you know, information from and guide us in our, if there were obstacles they encountered that they learned from, and avoid that by listening to their experience. So.
Well, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all for a really good special meeting. Very helpful.
Turn this off.
All that 1% sales tax and highway tax.